Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday, February the 25th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And we started out in this little tight range. We failed out the top, and then we've been selling off ever since. If you were lucky enough to catch this move using our rules up here, you could have gotten as many as 20, almost 30 points there today. I mean, this is the kind of day you like to have, and basically every time we've come back to the trend line, it's been an easy sell. And the way I got this trend line was I drew it across these bottoms first and just drug it up, and you can look and see that this is the exact same line as that one. For some reason it's off a little bit. Let me redraw it there. And you can see it's still the same line. I mean, it's a perfect fit. And I originally had it drawn a little bit, not quite as steep. I drew it off of these, but I kind of adjusted it as the day went along. When we came up short a couple of times, I think right in here we might have come up short. Somewhere we came up a little bit short, and I adjusted a little bit, moved it, and but that's basically the channel we had today. We've now overshot it quite a bit, and the market's actually closed. I didn't realize I was doing this so late, but now the market's closed. So the good thing, I guess you should say, is that we're getting a lot of movement lately, and we hadn't had this kind of movement very much in the ES lately. So this is good. You know, I hate to see it sell off, but in the big picture, I don't really care as long as we're getting movement. We don't care which way it's going. I just hate to see it sell off because of other investments and, you know, people that do or, you know, rely on their stocks and their dividends to make a living and stuff. I hate to see it for them. I'd much rather see this to the upside every day. But in the end, as a day trader, all we need is movement, and we're getting plenty of it. So you need to be taking advantage of it. And this is why we hold runners, and the runners are really doing well. But let's back out a little bit, talk about what we had today, and go from there. But when we opened, we really were, by the time the regular open got here, this was kind of a trading range. I started trading a little bit before the open today. This was the first trade that set up that I saw. We had a double top. We've tested it to the tick, made a broader double top, and made this big bearish down bar. I entered there. I assumed we were probably coming down here, which is where we went, but we got stuck in this right here. So I ended up exiting this trade with about 2 or 3 ticks, 2 ticks or something, I think. And I exited because I thought we were going to go higher. And you don't want to be entering definitely in this stuff. So if you didn't enter here, there was no sense in entering this trade. And I really should have gotten in this one. I would have liked to have gotten in this with a limit order, which would have worked out great. But I didn't get here in time for it to take the limit order, so I just had to enter. I basically entered below this, right below this green bar, and I ended up getting, I think, 2 ticks out of it, something like that, and I exited. Depending on how if you wrote it out, if you were tough, you know, brave enough to ride it out, then you still were able to get a nice move down. It's really a two-legged move, but you didn't, and this was the next low down, which you expect to get a bounce. But you really don't want to trade that bounce until you get a second entry on this, because look at, there's a lot of overlap in dojis, and you got a nice second entry there. Easy trade. You may or may have wanted to take this trade because of the overlap still here, but we already had this low, and then we tested it twice, and that's a reversal bar. And on that reversal bar, you just about have to take that trade. And I started to mark this one in green, but this is a fairly obvious trading range. It's a failed break out of this little double bottom and all of this, and then it's a test of this low that tested it twice and failed, and with the reversal bar. So let me back on out just to make that a little bigger. So that's a nice place to go long. Unfortunately, you didn't get a runner to the other side unless you gave it a little more room, but it was an easy scalp. And when you're in these trading ranges, a lot of times that's the best you can ask for. And then we come back up here and we test this entry, but because there's all this overlap, you had to wait on a second entry here, and it's a good thing because it did go higher, and then it turns down. So you really could have entered below this little doji if you wanted to be a little more aggressive. But if you didn't, you would have entered below this bar. And look at that move down. And you're looking for prices to come back to this level right here. And we just went right on through that. No bounce, so no reason to exit. Just hang on and, wait till you get a second entry long, and then you exit. And that's the only way you can do it. And that didn't come to right here. You got a second entry long right there. And I meant to draw this one in green here too. And I'll explain that in a minute. Let me just go ahead and do it before I forget. And then I'll explain it to you. But this was a heck of a move down, and this is where I exited at these lows. I just had an automatic target there. Plus, it was about to touch the possible trend line right there. Actually, it did touch the trend line right there. And originally, I had this drawn a little bit flatter than that because I came across these lows. But once this completed across here, I changed it to this one, and that turned out to be the right one. On the way back up, that turned out to be the perfect one. So play around with your lines. Make sure you got them right. Generally, if you got it pretty close, you're going to be all right, because even when I had it here, this was a little bit of an overshoot. But when we came up short up here, we turned down a little quick here without quite touching the trend line. So then I just pulled it on down and then drug it back down and straightened this one out to fit this one. And that turned out, and then from then on, it was easy go the rest of the day. And I mean, there's no reason you shouldn't have had just a couple of entries to make plenty of money, because this single entry right here made, I exited around 15.13 and entered up here around 22. So you look at what one runner made off of that move right there. And then there were two chances to enter down here. This trade was really, really aggressive here. If you entered on this second entry, it worked. You just enter right there. And the reason was because this was the overnight low. And you got the most touches of the bars right there. You might have even had it like that right there, that right there. Of course, you would have come up shy there, but I believe that was the low, because we touched all three bars right there, and you can see that turned out to really be the right spot. And then look when we came back and retested it. So anyway, there was a second entry here. It was a little more aggressive. Definitely should have been green. But when we made this shoot down here and turn, that's a reversal bar. What I did was just dropped a limit order down here right below this bar, so I got long right here. I would have probably entered. This one's a little more risky. It was really risky to enter right above that bar because it's such a long bar. You had to drop an order back in here, and you can see it would have come back and got filled all the way down to 15.13, which would have been one tick better than, or one tick worse than where I would have been able to enter there. So if you dropped a limit order, you might have got filled on that, but I doubt it, because prices didn't tick through here. You would have gotten filled here, and then it turned back up. So actually, you could have entered. I think I had all three of those circled when the chart was smaller. And you could have entered again here, because there's a failed, another failed entry low yet again, and it comes back up yet again. And you got to be thinking that we're probably coming to the upper side of the trend channel, and you draw your lines off this stuff and pull it up here, and that's where you look for the entries to happen. And then this is a nice bearish reversal bar here. There is a little bit of overlap, but you had these highs across here. It's a failed break above that, so there was more than one reason to enter. You might have even had a trend line drawn right down through here, thinking that we had a break, but that's not the case. This is just a bigger channel. That might have been a temporary trend line, but nothing the full time. So this was your first entry short. Easy scalp, no runners on that one, but you wanted to re-enter again right here. You might have thought about entering here, and you could have. Too much overlap there, and it's entering way too low across all those bottoms, so better to wait for it to come back up and get this next entry down. And that's a nice double top right there, a little bit lower than that one, and man, it was off to the races. Unfortunately, on this one, I exited again right here thinking we were going to get a bounce, and we went right on through. And you actually could have re-entered here. I meant to circle that one too. Could have entered here on a breakout pullback short. That is a beautiful reversal bar. I am going to put it in green because those trades are always a little more risky, but this one fits the criteria of a breakout pull back short to the T, and but it's usually better to wait on a second entry, and we just didn't get that. It didn't come back again. It just kept going lower. But if you were in and you held on through this, you shouldn't have waited to exit till you got a touch down here based off those first couple of moves down, and that would have got you out right at the bottom when it ticked through there, or within a tick or two off the bottom. And by this time, it's really risky going long in here, but what you figure is going to happen is we're going to come back to the other side. So just sit tight, let it come back, and then look for another short. You might have entered here because this was the first break of the trend line, but when you start going higher like that, generally you're going to get a second test. So wait on that second entry, which came right there, and it ticked higher first and then turned down. So I went short right below this bar. If not, you should have gone short below that, below the actual signal bar right there. Either way, any runners were safe, and there you are. You're headed down again, 1498 to 1510 or so. So another 10, easy 10 points there at least. And then guess what? When it touches the low side, there's your reversal. I don't recommend taking these trades, even though there's a pretty good chance they're going to come back. You never know, because look what happened here. And that's a very nice reversal bar. If you bought that, 1, 2, 3, you got trapped, and look what happens to you. Still falling. So that's why I don't recommend buying these. I really could have circled both of these, all three of these in green, because you could have traded them, but they're just very, very risky, and they're not hardly worth taking. And then you got this. Let me go ahead and copy this because I had a line here while I was trading, and it helps to see it when you draw your line across there. Notice that we had some support here. We broke below it. We came back. We tested it. And you really could have gone short here. It's close enough to the trend line. It's a retest. It's a failed break above, back above that area that turned down. And it would have worked. But generally, when it's making a new high, you're always better to wait on the second entry. And there it came. And this is kind of a lot of overlap right here, and it's really the prices are testing this, and so there's even the chance that you could come down here and touch it and bounce. So, but notice we went lower and made a lower low, and then we come back up and we can't make a higher high, and so you could have gone short right there, but then you had this trap right here, and if you didn't take either one of those when it tried to come up a second time, that's a second entry long that failed. And you had to go short right there because now you got the trap, and look at it take off again. So you could have really entered in any of those three places, and you really could have even entered here. As long as you kept your stop above the signal bar, you would have been okay. You probably would have scalped out of this one though, and they probably would have got your runner on this. So you got to look to re-enter over here anyway. And actually, to be honest, I entered here and got my scalp and scalped out, and came back, and I had to re-enter, and I think I re-entered right here after this failed second entry long. And so, and notice too that now you tested this high, and you came back and tested it 2 more times, plus you had the trend. So you got the resistance, you got the trend channel line, or the trend line, you got it all going for you, and then I was done for the day. And that was it for me. So there weren't really, it's really risky entering short down here. I don't really see any more great entries. You just about had to enter up here. You might have entered here on some of this on a failed second entry long right here, and you see what it turned in. But you're so close to these lows. That's a little trading range. It's just really, it's not hardly worth it. And but if you took it or saw it, it probably would have met the criteria. So. But anyway, that's what I saw today. Again, I'll back out of here. You can see it's a real clear channel, really obvious. And where are all your entries at the key entry points? You don't want to be entering in the middle and the centers here because sometimes they work, like here, but then look what happens the next few times. And there are clear setups on these. I will give you that, and there would have been here. But this is what happens when you start trying to enter when it's headed back to the other side. Same thing right here. You enter here, you get burned, and you enter here, and you get stopped out again, only to see it go higher. So you don't know, exactly when it's going to turn up and go back. And, sometimes you'll do it on the first touch, like here. And I was really the only one. That was the only one that bounced on the first touch. This one, I guess you could say that was the first touch. It didn't quite get there right there. So I guess that was really the second bar that touched. So, and then there's the first bar that touched. So here, it really was the first bar. It came back and tested it again. So really, you got to wait on at least a touch. There's another first touch. But look, that one failed. And it failed on the next touch as well. So, but that's why, this will happen more in the afternoons than it happens earlier in the mornings. And don't ask me why. But that's just been my experience, and that's the reason I try to be done earlier in the day than normal. And you can see I traded pretty late today compared to what I usually do, but it's such a good trading day. We don't get many moves like this anymore, so when you see them, you got to take advantage of them. But anyway, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. I'm going to wrap it up and call it a day, and we'll see you tomorrow.